Viola, thank you for the Arcuspa. Dear Mr. Akuma, I'd like to hear your suggestions for dating with a man because I always get silent with the dialogue. I was embarrassed and overwhelmed. What should I do? Thank you. It's a good question. I think, yeah, coming out of your comfort zone and being able to like interact with someone on a date can be really difficult because being shy is something that many people really struggle with. Yeah, I'd say, like, try not to worry about it too much because the more you think about it and the more you psych yourself out, the more likely you are to not know what to say. But also, I think that if you do go on a date, I think that letting the guy know before you go out and just saying, like, yo, I'm kind of, like, just being really honest and saying, I'm kind of a quiet person, so I might not really know what to say all that often. Most dudes that I know would be completely fine with that. I mean, okay, something that men in particular really like to do is they love to talk about their interests. I think it's sort of a side effect of, you know, how much importance is put on like what men do for work, you know, like it's sort of a societal thing, and you can say like, oh, you know, it's and I think there are some sort of like political things that you could say about it, but I'm not here to engage in any of that. What I'm here to say is that men love to talk about their interests and they love to talk about their work. So what I would say is the best thing that you can do is ask a man to talk to you about something that he's thinking about, because they tend to have like a lot of thoughts going on. Just say, what do you do for work? What are your hobbies? What is this? What is that? If you're shy and you're really not sure what to say about about yourself, ask questions. Just think of something that you want to know about them. Even if you don't want to know it, it's so much easier for someone to talk to you if you ask them questions rather than just say, oh, like if they ask you a question. Also, if they ask you a question, ask them one back. Say something that helps them sort of lead the conversation. So, for example, instead of them being like, how was your day? Instead of just being like, it's good. You know, it's pretty good. How about you? You should then say something interesting that happened in your day, and then maybe that will give them a chance to springboard off and say, oh, that's insane. And then when you've told a story, then you ask like, then instead of asking, how was your day? You could maybe ask, do you have a story like that? And then suddenly it'll go on like that. So that's the best advice I can give for introverts, is that if you're struggling to interact with an extrovert, ask them questions. And if you're dating a man, ask him questions about his hobbies and his work, because most men that I know, at least, are really eager to talk about that shit. I mean, I know more than a dozen dudes who would talk your ear off about anything they're interested in, you know, at the drop of a hat. So it might not be great, but if you want to talk to them, that's how you do it. At least in my experience. I'm not a professional. Well, this kind of goes back to what I said about like the kind of people that I find attractive. I think that the things that always get me, okay, maybe when I answered the last question, I might have been projecting a little bit, because the people that I like interacting with are the ones who talk like that. You know, either the ones who ask me questions about what I'm interested in, or the ones who have lots to say about their interests. Because the more that someone is sort of like consumed by their interests, the more that I respect them and the more that I want to get to know about them. Like if they have a really like interesting job, or if they have a really or if they have like an interesting hobby, or if they've got something like that, then fuck it, you know, like that's the kind of thing that I really enjoy and that I find really attractive. So I tend to sort of get smitten with somebody a lot quicker if I feel like they have something other to do than to hang out with me. That kind of gets inside my head a little bit, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Let me read these. And Anzushi, thank you for the super. Hello, my lord. I'm really enjoying seeing you play RuneScape. Seeing as you've given some advice for introverts, would you have some advice for an extrovert who can't stop oversharing? I think that the best advice I can give for extroverts, because I think I can tend to be a little shy when I don't know someone, but most of all, I'm an extrovert. And I think the best piece of advice that I have, really try to stop yourself when you think you might like want to interject, because one of the best things that an introvert can have is a little bit of your undivided attention. because I think that the thing for introverts is that they can really sometimes feel like one thing that introverts really feel is that they don't speak because they feel as though what they're saying isn't worth people's time. And it's rough, right? Nobody deserves to feel that way. So what you should really try and do is make sure that what they say feels important to you. So I understand what it's like being an extrovert, and I do this all the time. If someone says something that excites me, I will try and interject immediately. I'm like, oh yeah, and I'll just kind of like jump in and be really energetic. But I think one of the problems with that is that what you can do is maybe undermine what the other person is saying. And you're not really wrong for doing that, but it helps to try and catch yourself before you do. You know, it's an awful feeling for the extrovert and the introvert, because the extrovert wants to jump in and wants to make the introvert feel special for what they're saying, but in doing so, you might wind up just talking over them, and that is it's a pretty shitty thing to do. So I would say the best thing as an extrovert is to just remember that introverts, while they might not speak often, they want to be heard. So if oversharing and speaking lots is fine, as long as when someone else is speaking, you make sure to listen. Okay? That's the best piece of advice I can give for an extrovert.